Welcome to the Big Biz Show. Taking care of business. You want fast-talking, hard-hitting discussions on business and finance? Maybe with a barroom slant and some really salty peanuts? We're not counting calories. We're counting cash. Before we get to the man with the financial plan, meet the money team. Costa, Mary, and Greg. Now Captain Finance himself, Sully.
Wherever you are watching, wherever you are listening, it is the Big Biz Show from the Loft 100 studios. I am Costa. There are some of our cohorts who are missing. Apparently, they are on their way in. I talk about Mary Bird Godwin. I talk about Greg Todorov and Sully. But the way I look at it, and as always, thanks to the Day Trader Trio for being here, James, Brian, and Trace. Guys, our dream has come to fruition. It's just us four.
It's just us.
Trace is like, yeah.
We have got the keys to our parents' cars, and we are on the road.
Awesome.
James, I know there was something you wanted to talk about having pertaining to last week's show, a scam that you almost were a victim of. But Brian, I want to hear about what was your big weekend this past weekend? You almost got in a boating accident?
Something like that. I went up to Northern California to visit family and friends.
Okay, where in Northern California?
I was in Santa Rosa.
Okay.
And I was in the East Bay also.
Gotcha.
On the way back, there was a huge steel ramp in the middle of the highway. Oh. Everyone's doing like 70 miles an hour. Hit the ramp, flattened 2 tires.
You?
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah, it was at night too.
Oh, of course.
8 p.m.-ish. So I had to pull over, call AAA. They came out and changed the thing. But I had to wait till the next morning to get new tires. So I got a hotel room.
Oh,
Next
dude.
morning, I got the tires. Yeah, exactly. But it turned out okay.
Did AAA respond pretty quickly?
Super quick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty good about that. Did you hurt the car at all?
I bent a rim, actually. The rim got a little bit bent.
Dude.
So that sucks.
Were you by yourself or was anybody else in the car?
I was with my girlfriend.
Was she just screaming and yelling at you like, I can't believe you were so stupid?
She was actually pretty calm.
Yeah?
Yeah, there was no way to avoid the ramp. It was like covering 80% of the lane. So it was like, I just shifted a little bit and only got 2 tires, you know. So.
Okay, first off, I'm glad you're okay. I mean, that's you and your girlfriend are okay. That's the bottom line. Was anybody else hitting the ramp, though, as you were?
Man. I'd say about a dozen cars all pulled over. Just a line of cars on the side of the road. Yeah, insane.
Dude, I'm sorry. It's funny because it's not me. That's what I'm saying. Okay. I'm glad you're okay, Ryan.
Thanks.
All right, James. We had Steve Weissman on last week, and he is Mr. Scam, the Scam Man from Scamicide.com. What is the God? Had I known this, I would have had you come on with him. But what did you almost get taken for?
I got this kind of anonymous email, or a text rather, and this guy sent me a text saying, hey, it's been a long time, I remember you from blah-blah, and he's going on it, and he sent me these links saying, hey, this friend of mine is moving to the United States, and he wants to hook up with you musically.
Really?
And he sent these links, and I was just sitting there going, should I click on this or not?
But doesn't it scare you to think that, and it could probably happen to the three of you, the whole band, whatever, that whoever the scammer was knew enough of your personal information that they knew to mention, I want to do music with you, or he wants to come over and do music with you.
Absolutely, yeah. It was the freakiest thing, and I just, and being a musician and wanting to be out there on social media and everything.
Sure.
You just don't know. You're so.
It could lead to more gigs and you being more famous than you already are. It's the one I always get saying, hey, could you send me pictures? And I'm just like, whoa, what kind of pictures do you want, et cetera, in various poses, wearing various types of underwear, et cetera, et cetera. All right, we've got a big show planned for you today on the Big Biz Show. Mary's going to be back, I promise. Sully's going to be back. Greg Todorov is going to be back. I will be back in my normal position, so keep it here. More to come. Those beautiful tones you hear come from the State Trader Trio. James, Trace, and Brian as we get back to the Big Biz Show. Hope everybody is having a great day so far, wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening. We thank you for being along for the ride. Costa here, Marybird Godwin there. And we are always excited when this man is in studio with us, speaker, CEO, coach, consultant, chief launch officer, Mr. Dan Negroni. Check it all out, dannegroni.com. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so happy to be here.
It's always great to have you here.
It's so much fun when I'm here.
You brought in some reading material.
I brought in
Do we have some
my
homework
latest
that you want us to do?
My latest read.
Okay, what is it?
I want you to do homework, for next time. And look at the title, The Coddling of the American Mind.
Oh my, that can go so many ways.
So many ways.
Like hot
it is
topic.
just rich for discussion, right? Hot topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have 2 teens, and I would say there's so much coddling going on in the world with these younger generations, and I feel culpable. I feel guilty of doing some of the coddling because I don't know
I'm sure
why.
you are.
No, I mean, yes, I
We all
think
are.
that I am.
We
Yeah.
certainly all are.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult not to coddle. Like my son, one of my sons, my younger one, called me for coaching advice yesterday. And he's like, I have this situation. I won't speak what it is, but to embarrass him. But he's like, this or this. And I just said, well, what do you think? And then he answered anyway. I said, well, it sounds like you have the answer yourself. I think that's a great decision. And I was like, wow, not only good coach, but good parent. Because coaching, I know when I'm paid for it, I
Sure.
can do it that way. But when you're being a parent, right, you want to protect them from the road, not prepare them for the road.
Right.
And so
You got to do a little bit of both.
we got to
Yeah.
prepare this next generation for the road. So what are we doing to coddle them?
Okay, I have a 252-month-old who lives in our house. And
Wait, I got to do math. You didn't tell me how to do math this
21,
morning.
soon to be 22.
Okay.
And, there's certain, I run, it's hard for me to walk that tightrope because there's times like, okay, I'm not doing you a favor by doing it for you. And at the other times, I'm like, okay, should I just do this because I know you've got a ton going on in your life, et cetera, et cetera. But at the same time, everyone's got a ton of things going on in their lives.
Well, we've been through unprecedented times. I mean, we have crazy politics going on.
That should be the word of the
We
year.
have, right?
Unprecedented.
Unprecedented. And we have technology like crazy.
Yeah.
We had COVID. I mean, the world really changed, and anxiety and depression are at an all-time high.
Yep.
And we just want to protect everyone from all these ills. And guess what? Whatever hurts you makes you stronger, not weaker. And one of the untruths in this book is whatever hurts you makes you weaker. That's what we've been teaching our children. Instead of saying, oh, you got a person you can't deal with? Talk to them.
Talk to them, yeah.
Ask them a question. It's not, the other untruth in here is good versus evil. I mean, find a middle ground.
There's always the middle ground.
And how do we teach that? But we don't have time, we don't have patience, and we're so unnerved that it's hurting us.
Dan Negroni in studio with us, dannegroni.com. Please check out all that he has going on there. Okay, one of the things, Dan, that I personally have a huge problem with is, like right now, you and I are discussing and talking and conversing, and we're looking at each other in
good.
the eye,
Yeah.
and I'm not sweating, I'm not looking around, I'm not trying to look down at my phone. The three of us are just shooting the S, as they say. That Gen Z, that younger generation, and I mentioned my son, I watch them interact with somebody who is older than they are, and I almost go back to the point of, okay, look them in the eye, introduce yourself,
Smile.
smile. This isn't, this
Nod,
isn't the
give them
warden.
cues,
Yeah,
right, like
it's
you're
not somebody deciding whether you're going to get paroled or not. You're just talking to
Right, to
somebody.
relax.
Relax.
Yeah.
Do they know how to relax?
I think that, the device time, this freneticism about information, what everyone else is doing, how great it looks on social media, it's a problem. And so one of the solutions in here is less screen time for young kids, and really trying to figure out how do we do less screen time and work with our imagination and learn how to connect and have a conversation and, do all those things. You're not wrong. I mean, they're so focused on what's outside instead of how do I figure out what's inside, and what's just with us
I
three
had-
right now.
Yeah.
I was driving about 7 teenagers up to Los Angeles last week, and it was
It's a lot.
quiet in my car because they were all on their
headphones. Yeah.
And I was like, let's play the guessing game. Let's play the sign.
Yeah.
And my daughter's like, no, I don't want. I mean, we do have lots of times good
Right.
conversations in the car, but I thought, you have all of your friends here. This was the time that we would gossip or make up games or sing songs or whatever. And part of the time they do it, but they just are in there. But they might even be playing games against each other
Right,
or
sitting-
Snapchatting
right.
each other
Right,
Yeah.
in the car.
in the car.
Yeah.
It's wild. And I thought, I don't need to push
I
though.
think you should put a rule.
I was weighing this in my
1/2
mind.
hour of talk time or whatever it is. I
Yes.
mean, that's what it,
Yeah.
1/2 hour, or let's pick an issue and let's discuss it.
Right.
Yes, and we do that sometimes. It's just fascinating to me because I'm like, I'm trying to fight this thing that is, it's bigger than me.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, I can enforce that with half an hour, but the fact that they prefer that, it's just something we can't fight.
I think if you fought it a couple times, first of all, it's up to all of us to fight. So if we fight together, we may win. If we all try and fight alone and then we get kind of reticent and just, say, okay, well, let it happen, it's never going to work. But the best times you have with your kids, when you go vacation, you get a house somewhere remote and there is no TV or there is no phone service and you're on a lake
Yeah.
and you're, they even whatever, if they're a certain age, whatever, they can drink. It's just fun.
Yeah.
We were just on a beach in South Carolina last week, and we have this is like the 13th year that we've gone with the same family, the same kids, whole 9 yards, and we have a tech-less day. One day out
day.
of the
Yeah.
train.
So you're
But
doing your part.
we are, but you talk about taking drugs away from a drug addict.
Yeah.
Watching these kids, come on, let's go play bocce ball on the beach. Let's go golf. Let's play ladder golf. Let's go swim. Let's.
Be cool if you had a day, maybe. I'm just thinking and
Yeah.
brainstorming when you said that, it came up to me that you were focused on making someone else's day great. Like that was your only job for the day, that every person had to focus on making sure the other person had fun.
I love it.
Or, because that's really what it's about. It's to get them out of, this is not all about you. And we become so insular and so myopic with our brain that it plays tricks on us, right? It's not, when someone looks at you and they've had a bad day, it has zero to do with you, and you're like, what's wrong with me?
Right. It always comes
Nothing,
back.
right?
This reminds me something I saw on your Instagram feed, which I love your Instagram feed, and it was talking about not caring what people think and helping this generation not care. And you had something like there's 2 people that you need to care about.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think they were your 8-year-old self and your 80-year-old self.
Yep.
And it's kind of cool because for your 8-year-old self, you're telling, I made it. Whatever it was, whatever my wishes were, whatever my desires were, I had a path, I figured it out, I'm figuring it out, I got your back, I protect you, the whole emotional thing. And then for the 80-year-old self, it's just sitting and looking back and saying, did I do what I was meant to do in terms of providing value and impact to the rest of the world? Those are the 2 things you should care about, and they're very other focused. They're, what was my mark? What was my contribution?
Yes.
What were the things that I did that served other people or helped them?
And so if you're worrying about those thoughts, that's how you can course correct. But it's not how other people are experiencing you,
that's-
because everyone's going to have their own
Well,
opinion of
if you want to get better, sometimes you might have to ask people, hey,
Sure.
how did you experience me? Or was that, did
Especially
I
in the
hurt your
workplace.
feelings,
Yeah.
or, right, or whatever it was. But what it's saying is just be present enough to know that all you need to do is your best. And usually when you're doing your best, you're focused on what have I done as a contribution or impact. Right? What was my why?
To make
Did I live?
myself proud, my
To
80-year self.
myself proud, to
and
make
or
the
my
world better, to make my family happier, to leave, to have coached people or mentored people or had great relationships or fun with other people, whatever it is.
Well, I like that because it makes it an inside job, because you
Always
can,
an
it's
inside
always
job.
that, right?
Yeah.
It is. I mean, that's the thing. It's
Yeah.
like,
Well, that sounded dirty for a second.
No, no, but think about all the inside jobs. If there were more inside jobs, maybe how better the world would be.
Yeah.
In about 30 seconds, the way we're evolving as a society, and you mentioned the coddling of people, the tech and stuff, and the way it's affecting our lives. Do you ever see us getting back to a degree of normalcy, a course correction, or is this kind of like, this is kind of how it's going to go for a while?
Here's my view is I hope we will get back to a new normal.
Okay.
My belief is that accelerated transformation is here. Today is the slowest day you'll ever have in your life. It will only get faster.
Beautiful way to
So
put it.
we have to make sure that we can bridge the gap between technology and people. There will always be a need for people, but we cannot let technology overtake the importance of people.
Check it out, dannegroni.com. Always appreciate the time, brother. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
good to
Fun.
see you, Dan.
Pearls of Wisdom.
Yes, sir.
From Mr. Dan Negroni. All right, Sully is back. When we get back, I'm going to bounce out. I've got an appointment at a pizza place. Sully will be back in as the Big Biz Show continues after this. Keep it right here.
Loft 100 Studios, The Big Biz Show, our affiliates, and our hosts are not registered investment advisors or broker-dealers.
Our show hosts make no commitment that the purchase of securities of companies profiled or otherwise mentioned in our programming
are suitable or advisable for any persons, or that investment in such securities would be profitable in general.
Given the nature of our company's profile and the lack of an active trading market for their securities, and investing is highly speculative and carries a high degree of risk.
We profile selected publicly traded and privately held companies on our program.
Most of these companies that we profile have provided compensation to Loft 100 Studios and its host for the profile coverage.
3, 2, 1.
From time to time, we sell shares of the companies profiled in the open market that we receive as compensation for coverage of client companies.
But never sell stock if we are speaking about, interviewing, or covering a public company who has paid compensation.
Specific questions on compensation can be obtained by contacting producer at sullyandgroup.com.
Listeners should verify all claims and do their own due diligence before investing in any securities mentioned on this program.
Investing in securities is speculative and carries a high degree of risk.
We encourage our investors to invest carefully. Duh.
And read the investor information available on the website.
On the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, at www.sec.gov.
Or the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, FINRA, at www.finra.org.
My word.
It's a brother-sister thing.
Yeah. He's always trying to kill him. Big Biz Show, BigBizShow.com. Good to have you on. 125 million TV homes strong on BizTV, Bloomberg, and American Forces Network in 175 countries and all the sips it's in. There we go. Mike Taylor's here. Mike Taylor, of course, is our investment professional that kind of gives an inside scoop on investment banking. There's a company called NRX Pharmaceuticals, Jonathan Javi, you've seen on the program a number of times. And I'm going to bring Howie Font up on this as well, because Howie and Michael working together very hard in advising NRX Pharmaceuticals, but a spin-off called Hope Therapeutics, which is, so NRX is a publicly traded company under the stock symbol NRXP. And then, of course, Hope is what they call a spin-off. It'll be a privately held company, correct? Talk about the mechanics of that first.
So it's fairly common. Sometimes we'll see publicly traded companies that will have a private spinoff for various purposes. And of course, in the case of Hope Therapeutics, that was kind of an adjunct to NRX as they're developing a ketamine-based drug, anti-suicide, bipolar depression, PTSD, that ultimately will be a big part of Hope Therapeutics and helping folks to find mental health care and suicide ideations.
And so why spin off a company or start a new company
when you've got a publicly traded company that's developing drugs for it? Is it just because potentially Hope can spin off to a public company on its own later? Is that one of the reasons?
Yeah, so what it does is it affords, from the investor standpoint and from the company standpoint, in the case of NRX, we have a biotech company, drug innovation. Hope Therapeutics is really kind of that brick and mortar mental health facility, but it allows you to kind of go wherever the shareholder value presents itself.
Right.
So if we're finding that the shareholder value is greater on the Hope Therapeutics side, in theory, that could be taken public in its own right. So it really allows the company that flexibility and agility to go where the shareholder value ultimately.
You and I talked about the tax benefit for something like this. And what does that tax benefit look like? Is that because the company spins off some of the assets, or it gets a trickle down from some of the income from the new company? What's the angle there?
So for an investor with Hope Therapeutics, because this is going to be brick and mortar based, and even taking on existing ketamine clinics, but kind of rebranding and legitimizing the approach to ketamine therapy, we've targeted opportunity zone areas for these ketamine clinics. So 2017, there was legislation passed that said if you take capital gains and redistribute those into equity, you get away from, you get the tax break.
Yeah.
So for an investor, it's very lucrative.
I want to bring Howie Font up. Howie Font, of course, our punctrepreneur in New York, but I want to bring him up for a couple of reasons. Number one, there was recently, I think in the last week, E.F. Hutton did a research report on NRX Pharmaceuticals, and it was a 28-page report. Howie, I think you have a cursory knowledge of what's going on with that. Talk about that and how that might affect the effort to put Hope on its own 2 feet.
Sure. So I second everything Mike said, and I just summarized the report by saying there's not as comprehensive a breakdown of the model, what NRX is trying to do, where the opportunity zones are, and some of the tax benefits associated with that, and where they're placing the clinics, than this new report. And any investor interested or anyone wanting to go a little bit more in depth is going to have a great opportunity because of it.
The NRX talks about a drug called HTX-100. Is that assigned to Hope as an asset now?
It is.
And that's what now it will be Hope's drug.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah. So again, going back to that shareholder value and being able to have the flexibility to position the company and its assets accordingly, the decision was made to move that drug to Hope Therapeutics exclusively. Now, Hope Therapeutics is a wholly owned subsidiary of NRX, but the company ultimately decided that there was more value and ultimately more shareholder value to move it to Hope Therapeutics.
So the only other approved treatment is shock therapy, and I think there's nasal ketamine, which has been shown not to really work. This is pill form, correct? Is that right? Howie, is that right? I think it's pill form based on what I read. So this. Go ahead.
This is the IV drug.
The IV drug. Okay.
Administered in the clinic.
So this is a game changer. I mean, does this change everything, Howie, with respect to, since it looks like it's the only thing that works at this point?
Well, Mike can speak to this as well, but there's just not a level of professionalism like what NRX has and what Hope is going to bring as far as the quality of the ketamine and the quality of the execution. Yeah, it's a whole experience. Patients are spending 2-3 hours each visit being monitored by a nurse, and that's not a consistent experience across the board nationally. So,
hey, Mike, in terms of raising capital for a company like this, in terms of spinning off like NRX is doing, this is obviously a helpful sort of step in the right direction, right?
This is critical. Anytime we're looking at making an investment, we're always looking for that edge, that nuance. Ketamine that's currently being, and you don't want me talking about the science, but the ketamine as it's currently being used is highly toxic due to a preservative that's in it. So NRX.
And that's at these ketamine clinics that you were just referring to.
That's right. That exist,
now.
right. So FDA is really clamping down on, regulators are clamping down on the misuse of ketamine. So not only will Hope Therapeutics come in and kind of be on the right side of that regulation, but the IV ketamine also does not contain the preservative, which brings a higher quality to the patient.
Well, we're going to follow you on this because obviously NRX is an interesting guest that's regular, but now you're kind of bringing us into the next step of this thing. Any idea of how fast it's going to happen?
We believe it's going to be very quick.
No kidding.
Yeah, in the coming months.
We're not talking years, talking coming months. Yeah. Mike Taylor, NRXP, of course, our investment banker on staff. Or Big Biz coming up. Stand by.
So for good, better, or worse.
That's a great title, by the way.
Hey there, live from the Loft 100 Studios in sunny San Diego, California. 125 million TV homes strong. Thanks to BizTV, Bloomberg Financiero, and soon to be Bloomberg EU. That's not Bloomberg EU. That's European Union.
Ah, EU.
No Mike Costa today. We do have Mary Bird Godwin and Greg Todoroff. I think we're better off for it. And
I agree.
Our good friend Stephen Brady, CEO of Tempest Therapeutics. They're publicly traded at the stock symbol TPST. You can go to tempesttx.com. So take it from the top for us, Steve. Tell us about what you guys are out to do. Obviously, new and effective cancer treatments, but just be specific about it.
Yeah. So in some sense, we're a traditional biotech company, right? Everything we're working on is novel science meant to move the needle. None of the programs that make it out of our research group and everything we have is worked on internally. We're what you call a wet company. We have labs. We're not just a development organization. So all the science is done inside. Obviously, you have help from the outside as well. But nothing's meant to be a small move the needle, right? We are looking at cancer types and patient populations where we think there's significant unmet medical need. And the news that Sully's talking about is in liver cancer, first-line liver cancer, which is a terrible disease to get. I mean, no cancer is good, but they are definitely on a scale, right? Like Hodgkin's lymphoma, we have made phenomenal inroads. People are getting cured. That is not the case with liver cancer.
Liver and pancreatic are the two that I hear that you just know is
terrible. Yeah. Terrible. And it's your first line indication, you think, okay, I just got diagnosed. There's hope for me because a lot of the other cancers there is. And in this one, unfortunately, it's still a pretty bad prognosis.
And are the majority of the cases, are they inherited? Is it?
So there's multiple causes of liver cancer. It's also interesting in a bad way. It's one of the few growing cancers in the world. The numbers are actually increasing.
Wow.
They're expected to keep increasing. It's caused by hepatitis B, hepatitis C.
Right.
Is it lifestyle related?
One of you just exactly.
It's post-COVID. Let's face it. Our
booze.
behavior.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, if you talk about it, well, the entire bar. But the point is that if every story you read is post-COVID and during COVID, people were imbibing more than they have been in years and years and years. Could that be part of it?
Yeah, there's diabetes, there's booze, there's an indication called NASH, which is liver disease, cirrhosis, not caused by alcohol. So you have multiple ways to get this cancer, and once you get it again, it's
Yeah.
And the needle moved a few years ago. There is a single dominant therapy known as atezo-bev. It really moved the needle from where things were before, but it hasn't done enough, right? So the data that Sully was referring to, what we did is we took our lead program, which is called a Maselpat. I think when we first met, it was still TPST 1120.
1120. Yeah.
Right, now it has its generic name, a sign of progress right there. And we added that to the standard of care, that dominant standard of care, and we compared it to the standard of care and what you would call in a gold, this is the way you do clinical studies, right? You do a randomized study you try to control the variables, you take your drug, you add it to something, and you compare it to something. And the most meaningful one, at least to us, for patients, is compare it to the standard of care.
Yeah.
Compare it to the thing that they would get but for your new drug.
which is a chemo of
It's
sorts,
actually
or is
an
it not?
IO. So one of the drugs called Avastin that's been around for a long time, right? That's an anti-VEGF.
Okay.
So it controls the creation of blood vessels, which obviously cancer cells need to live. And the other one, atezo, was a cutting-edge immunotherapy, right? It's a PD-L1 molecule. That's the part it hits, and that's that whole IO revolution that you heard about a few years ago. Which we live in a world of investors. It was incredibly popular for years, and now because things go out of favor for time periods, that's become less interesting to investors. But at the end of the day, the medicine is still the same. The biology is still the same. So that standard of care is a combination of what's called an anti-angiogenic and then a checkpoint inhibitor.
I want to talk about that top line phase 2 clinical data that you released, and it was. I mean, we don't typically talk about share price and stuff in this program, but you were the number one single day gainer in the history of the stock market.
It was insane.
Wow.
Yeah. And
yeah,
it was
people calling me up saying you were in the ticker next to like Apple and
Yeah.
these other ones moving across the bottom.
and it was based upon fundamentals. It was based upon
Yeah.
news.
Yeah.
The specifics of that release actually got better
Yes.
2 months ago.
Yes.
Talk about that, and let's talk about the outcome of that, both on science side, but also on the market side.
Okay, so when we do these clinical studies, when anybody developing a drug, right, we have multiple ways we measure things that are of interest. And in fall, when everything went insane, what we had was a first look at the randomized data. And we had this thing called objective response rate, which is really important in a lot of cancers. It's when you measure, the doctors measure the tumor, and they say, over this point, we're going to do it more than once. We're going to say, did it shrink in a meaningful way, right?
And that's the question.
That was the question at that time, and we more than doubled the objective response rate of the standard of care control arm. So it was huge. But the thing everybody really, and the other point is our safety profile. We did not add toxicity to the standard of care for that benefit that wasn't manageable, right? Which is huge. Cancer eventually, even for liver cancer, will evolve to not just keeping you alive, right? It evolves to, you're alive, but are you living?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Why be sitting in a bed miserable, right? That's something I've wanted my whole career, to be able to say, Mom, look what we did in this cancer, and actually the people are actually enjoying their life. So in fall, we doubled that number, and we had some interesting signposts going towards where we really wanted to be. It's called overall survival. The number one, the global regulatory endpoint.
That's the finish line.
Endpoint, right? But we didn't have it because our patients were doing well. But the control arm did. So it had hit its median overall survival when we made the announcement, but we still didn't have it. We had too many people doing well. So it's kind of funny. Everybody wants that from you, but you don't have it for a good reason.
Right. So, and a reason that has to do with the ultimate endpoint.
Yeah.
Right, and the whole reason you're in the business of trying to make drugs.
Yeah.
You're trying to keep people alive, right? So the new data we got, dated as of Valentine's Day, actually, which I used to think was such a fake holiday, and now I actually will remember it fondly, was we got overall survival data, and we had a 6-month improvement over the standard of care. Wow. And if you talk to any clinician in our world, they're happy at 3 months.
Yeah.
Anything above 3 months improvement. But there were two or three big things in this news release too. One was we weren't done or aren't done. 50% of the patients on our arm were still on therapy, and there were groups still on drug. So that number could actually get better, right? Number two, we got to look into subpopulations and not to go down into a deep science hole, but we all have hypotheses about the way our drugs work, and they should do this in these patients, and they shouldn't do this in these patients. And all of that panned out. If we had more time, I would go into it more deeply. You can look on our slides on our website. But the story that we thought was going to happen is happening. And that doesn't happen a lot of times, right? Your drug might work, but you're like, ooh, it didn't work the way we thought it to, but it worked. Let's keep going. Yeah. That's not the story here. It's working the way we think it should be working. And the other part, and this bodes well, we think, for the phase 3, there's this thing called a hazard ratio, which in this case is a risk of death, right? And there are numbers that we target, and we don't have to go into the specific numbers, but what was really important, those fall data, we had a median follow-up on the patients of over 9 months, right? This data readout from February is 10 months later, and our hazard ratio barely moved from around 0.6 to 0.65. Why do you care? Because you want that to be stable.
Sure.
Because that means when you go into your phase 3 and you take this number and you enlarge it, that you think you're going to see the same benefit, that the effect is stable over time.
The question is, there was a market disconnect.
Absolutely.
That day. And I think it was because you put out the news that everybody wanted, but it wasn't the sexy news that the public would be looking for. It was the sexy news that the scientific community absolutely knew was fantastic. Talk about that. Do you try to go mitigate that with a message? Do you go back and put a new press release out saying, hey, wait a minute, take a closer look? I mean, this is part of it. I've been wanting you to do this for a while, to say this very thing on the air. But talk about that.
Yeah, so I won't channel anybody's frustration around this. The number of phone calls we got after those data, whether it was from Wall Street analysts, investors, people's relatives, I mean, anybody around, wait a minute, those were the data. Everybody got so excited in fall when what you had was directionally correct. This is what you always wanted.
This is the payoff.
Yeah, this was the payoff. Why didn't it go absolutely ballistic, right? This is me speaking.
I think it was misinterpreted by a bunch of investors that aren't scientists.
Or even who even don't understand drug development. I'm not trying to disparage them. I mean, I think this isn't a science question anymore, right? This is an active molecule that feels like a drug.
Yeah.
Right? And for investors, I would think you should now be saying, okay, wait a minute, they're sitting on top of phase 2 data. I know the math from that to a successful phase 3. I know how big liver cancer is. It's an enormous market with a single dominant player. So when you take away from all the reasons we do it in terms of helping people and you turn it into a pure business question, this isn't that complicated. It's a product story now. It's not a science story.
So here's my last question. This product story, and we've talked about this before, since it's so robust, is there a possibility for other applications other than liver?
Absolutely.
Other solid tumor cancers?
In fact, we were in, so the interesting thing about this program, about Amazopad, is that the phase 1 and the phase 2 were ongoing at the same time. This never happened to me in my career. And when we were doing our phase 1, part of it was during COVID. And we didn't have a lot of liver cancer patients in it because liver cancer patients usually at the big centers, and those had converted over to being COVID centers, right? All the big academic centers. And so where we got really interesting data was in kidney cancer and a small type of cancer you've never heard of, cholangiocarcinoma. And we had what's called an oral presentation at ASCO on the phase 1 data, which is you get invited to stand up and talk about your data live because it's deemed worthy. So oral presentations in our line of work are an honor, but it wasn't HCC. But RCC, again, kidney cancer, and CCA, cholangio, were the two other than liver cancer patient where we thought we should see activity. So this drug, not only is the biomarker data looking good, its signals are in everything it should be.
Wow.
I love we got to cover every single thing that I had questions
Yes,
about.
we did.
Your shareholders had questions about. His name's Steve Brady, CEO, Tempest Therapeutics. We'll see you again next week. I want you here every week in person, maybe every day, if we could do that.
Come up to San Francisco.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. All right. J.J. Wiseman has been our scam expert on the program for over 15 years. He is an attorney. He's a law professor. He runs Scamicide.com, has written about 12 books, including The Truth About Avoiding Scams and Identity Theft Alert. And he joins us here from Boston. How are you, sir? Or Massachusetts, I should say. Can we talk about, we just had Amazon Prime Day, and I hear the scams were just rampant. Talk about Amazon Prime Day a little bit.
Yeah, you know, and a good example of that is the scammers always take advantage of whatever people are interested in. And so many people were interested in Amazon Prime. But the essential scam that they're doing, the model they're going to keep on doing. And what happens is you get an email, a pop-up ad, a text message, and it tells you either there's some emergency with your account, and everybody's got an Amazon account, so they think it's legit, or there's some really great deal for you. So they either lure you into providing your personal information, or they send you to what looks like a great Amazon website where you put in your information. Now, the Amazon websites actually, these clones look perfect because once again, artificial intelligence is allowing them to set this kind of thing up. And you give your information there, you put in your credit card, and they're off to the races. You know, my motto is trust me, you can't trust anyone. Yeah. You never provide personal information. You never make a payment in response to an email, a phone call, or a text message. You get something like from Amazon that looks like it's interest, go to Amazon directly at the website that you know is legit. The month before Prime Day, there were 1,500 phony Amazon websites that were put up, and they look great.
Oh my God!
So you just can't trust them.
Well, it's just like the emails you get, let's say from Chase Bank or Bank of America, that have the logo on it.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And Steve taught us this, and even taught it when my kids were in high school, or both, you know, into their adulthood, into their careers now. Is that one of the things that you can always spot one of these spoofing emails is they have bad grammar or they've got typos.
Always.
And it's almost, and then the other piece, but didn't you say, Steve, check the email it's coming from?
Yep.
Yes.
Like check it as
the URL, for sure.
Here's the thing. Again, my motto: things aren't as bad as you think; they're worse. That doesn't hold as much anymore because now with AI, that North Korean hacker, and we just got a warning from the federal government about North Korea attacking our infrastructure through these kinds of tactics. They're able to use AI so that the grammar is really good. And instead, often we would also see the email address sent was from a botnet. These are people, you and I, whose email addresses were hacked and used to send this thing out. But now they will have email addresses that look exactly like, with maybe one little kind of change in it. And they even use a foreign alphabet where the A may be a little bit slightly different, but it comes across as a different email address. So you can't trust any kind of email, even if the address looks legitimate.
Hey, Steve Wiseman's his name. Truth About Avoiding Scams is one of his books. You can go to scamicide.com. Last of all, the TSA is cracked down on the fact that if you have a known traveler number, KTN, or you have a passport.
Just got mine. Known traveler number. I got it.
So you got pre-check?
I got it, baby.
Pre-checked all the way through? Why did it take you so long? Haven't you had it for like 10 years?
I thought it was going to be really hard, and it was not hard
Except for renewing it is hard. And the reason renewing it is hard is because of the rampant scams that are going on. Because right now, they're avoiding sending out reminders that your passport's about to expire or that your KTN's about to expire. It's up to you, because if they send out reminders, it's just one more entryway, right, Steve, for the scams. There's a ton of passport renewal scams. Talk about that.
Yeah, we've been seeing a lot of that, particularly this summer. And so, when you get a notice, again, you can't trust it. You've got to go to the site and make sure you type it in correctly. Because what the criminals do, the cyber criminals do, is they will get URLs that are just slightly different from the domain name of the passport agency. So you can't trust it. I'll tell you, the funny thing is about not trusting it. I got one from Social Security telling me that my Social Security account, which everyone should have, and it really provides a lot of protection and ease, needed to be changed. And I'm thinking this is a total scam. I found out it was legitimate. But once again, I didn't go through that email. I went to Social Security and found the correct one. But to me, I'm going, wow, they look pretty good. It was because it was accurate.
So I guess, what are we looking for next? Because we're going to the holiday season, believe it or not. I mean, we're in the third quarter. I know it's only July, but you're going to start seeing those things come in the next couple of months. I think the number one thing that we can do is just call you up and go to your website, Steve. But is there one is there one takeaway we can give going forward? Because this AI thing is scaring the crap out of anybody. I mean, the next thing I know is that you're going to see, me on a website that I never even had anything to do with, endorsing a product I know nothing about. Is there any way you can defend any of this?
With great difficulty. I've looked at some of these things. How do we know they're the deep fakes? And you mentioned, you endorsing something, celebrities endorsing and even providing free cookware. Taylor Swift was supposedly doing that on social media. And of course, it wasn't her. They say you can look for certain things, like there may be an additional digit or some other way of recognizing the deep fakes. I think that's all crap. You're not going to be able to do it. So, for instance, if it were Sully, and I'm not going to trust any kind of website, I'm going to go to your website, Sully, and then if it's legitimately there, it'll be there.
This AI thing scares the crap out of me. Steve, thanks so much, buddy. We'll see you next week. Steve Wiseman, Scam Man. Scamicide.com, of course. Truth about avoiding scams. Identity theft alert. And as he says, things aren't as bad as you think. They're far worse. But doesn't that AI thing, I mean...
You need like a family safe word to
know, You can ruin a marriage with this stuff. I mean, this stuff's coming out like just crazy stuff. And they're using it to ransom ex-wives and ex-husbands or husbands and wives. Say, I'm going to show this to your husband if you don't give me some money. And it's like...
It's not me.
It ain't me.
No,
which is also a great excuse, by the way, if you're messing around there, James. It was AI. It was just AI. Big Biz Show. We'll see you in a minute.
Troika is a brand consulting, creative design, and content group that holds the view that brands are a company's most valuable asset and that the most enduring brands forge strong emotional bonds with audiences and supporters. To assist brands in converting audiences into ardent fans, they adopt a fan-centric perspective that guides the way they think, create, and design. Their craft is a blend of art and strategic thinking to create a holistic and meaningful brand experience that builds highly engaged, loyal audiences. Using immersive live experiences, brand partnerships, PR, social media, and influencer marketing, Mission is a communications company that helps brands stand out by interacting with consumers from a cultural perspective.